Okay, I want you to imagine looking up at a perfectly clear blue sky. No clouds, no storms. But suddenly, it starts darkening. And it's not rain falling on you. It's chunks of raw, shredded flesh plummeting to the earth. It sounds like a horror movie, right? But what makes this 1876 mystery absolutely unforgettable isn't just the horrifying meat shower itself. It's the completely unbelievable fact that the locals actually ate it. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to unpack one of the most bizarre, grotesque, and wildly fascinating events in history. I mean, seriously, it sounds exactly like the opening scene of a dark sci-fi thriller. But this is our baseline, undeniable fact. Chunks of fresh meat fell from a clear blue sky, and people actually tasted it. Today, we're diving strictly into the historical source material. We're going to look at the immediate, very weird reactions, the absolute scientific panic that swept the country, and finally, the deeply, deeply unsettling biological theory that actually explains the whole shebang. All right, Section 1, the impossible shower. Let's get right into it. So let's travel back to March 3rd, 1876. We're near Olympian Springs in rural Kentucky. And what's kind of crazy here is just how totally normal the day started. You've got a local woman, Mrs. Crouch, outside her home doing a completely routine chore. She's making soap. The records show it's a beautiful day, clear, sunny, literally not a cloud in sight. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, pieces of fresh flesh just start plummeting from the heavens. And this wasn't just, a quick splat and it's over. This shower of meat went on for several minutes. It completely covered an area of her property roughly 100 yards long and 50 yards wide. Just a total downpour of mystery meat. So what exactly was sitting all over Mrs. Crouch's yard? Well, looking at the physical evidence documented back then, the material looked a lot like fresh beef. But, and here's where it gets creepy, it wasn't falling in like neat, recognizable cuts. It was shredded. It fell in these jagged flakes and small, torn strips, just littering the grass and hanging off the fences. Try to picture that scene for a second. A beautifully sunny farm, suddenly plastered with shredded, bloody tissue falling from an entirely invisible source high above. Yikes. Moving on to Section 2, the brave taste test. Now, I gotta ask you, if you walked out your front door and found your lawn covered in shredded mystery meat that literally just fell from the sky, what would you do? You'd run, right? Or call the cops? Well, not the locals of Bath County in 1876. Completely unbothered by what we'd consider, basic hygiene, two local men strolled up to the scene and made a really audacious choice. They literally gathered up pieces of this sky meat, cooked it, and ate it. Yep, no way around it. They conducted a culinary review of a literal biological anomaly. And their official verdict? They reported it tasted distinctly like venison or mutton. The macabre humor of these guys casually frying up unexplained sky flesh, it's just one of those things that makes this event so surreal. Which brings us to Section 3, a scientific panic. So while the locals were basically playing food critic, the rest of the country was absolutely horrified. Word spread like wildfire, and preserved samples of this meat were rushed off to frantic scientists everywhere. And the initial results? Terrifying. The Newark Scientific Association examined the samples and concluded it was lung tissue, specifically lung tissue from either a horse or a human infant. You can just imagine the absolute panic that sparked. Human infant lungs raining from the sky? Nightmare fuel. But then, a chemist named Leopold Brandeis steps in with a way less horrifying idea. He said it was nostoc. Now, nostoc is a cyanobacteria that lies dormant until it rains, and then it swells up into this fleshy, jelly-like mass. People used to call it star jelly. Brandeis thought he totally cracked the case. The glaring problem, though, as we established earlier, it hadn't rained. There was no water. It only rained meat. So yeah, the nostoc theory completely falls apart. All right, Section 4, the disgusting truth. So that leaves us with the final, widely accepted, scientifically accurate, and yet utterly repulsive explanation brought forward by Dr. L.D. Castenbein. He looked at all the clues, the clear sky, the shredded flakes, the venison taste, and he proposed the vulture theory. Let's walk through the sickening mechanics of this step by step. Step 1. A massive flock of vultures in the area finds a dead animal, maybe a deer or a sheep, which perfectly explains that mutton taste, and they gorge themselves. They eat so much carrion they'd become incredibly heavy. Step 2. Something suddenly startles them, forcing the flock to take flight fast. But because they're so weighed down by this massive meal, they struggle to get up in the air. Step 3. This triggers a fascinating, if totally gross, biological defense mechanism. To shed weight quickly and escape, the entire flock engages in instinctive, synchronized vomiting high up in the atmosphere. Step 4. All that recently consumed, semi-digested, shredded animal tissue is expelled and it plummets straight back to Earth, right over Mrs. Crouch's farm. Honestly, it's a perfect explanation. It ties up literally every single loose end. It explains why the meat was in torn flakes because it had been ripped apart by vulture beaks and was already partially digested. It explains why the sky was totally clear and blue with no rain clouds. And it perfectly explains the flavor profile our brave, cast-iron-stomached locals reported. So, no, it wasn't a paranormal event, and thank goodness it wasn't human lung tissue. It was just a massive, synchronized shower of vulture vomit. The Kentucky meat shower of 1876 is just this brilliant, slightly dark reminder of how incredibly strange, mysterious, and, well, wonderfully gross the natural world can be. It really shows how proper scientific inquiry can eventually cut right through even the wildest public panic. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. The next time you're outside on a beautiful, perfectly clear, sunny day, and you suddenly feel a mysterious drop hit your shoulder, are you going to be brave enough to look up? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. And hey, keep your curiosity and maybe your umbrellas ready.